So today we're kicking off a brand new series, and it's all about something I call the intellectual poverty trap. We're starting with a paradox, a really strange and frustrating one. Why do so many incredibly smart people struggle so much when it comes to money? It's a question that honestly, it kind of challenges everything we think we know about success. All right, let's just start with a number. That's it, 70%. Yeah, you heard that right. It turns out that a whopping 70% of people with certified high intelligence, we're talking IQs over 130, never manage to build any significant wealth. And you see it all the time, right? People with way less formal intelligence somehow seem to be crushing it financially, while the smart ones feel like they should be the ones succeeding. And this all boils down to that really uncomfortable question. It's one you might have even asked yourself, and it's the central mystery we're going to try and unravel right now. So, where do we even begin to find the answer? Well, you might be surprised to hear it's not about some secret stock picking strategy or a complex investment formula. Nope. It starts with something way more fundamental, our basic understanding of what money even is. We literally have to redefine the game. Okay, so a huge part of the problem comes down to this basic conflict in how we think about money. On one side, many of us are taught to see it as this heavy, moral thing, the root of all evil, something that corrupts you or makes you a sellout. But there's a much more useful way to look at it. Money is simply an expression of value. It's not good, it's not evil, it's just a neutral tool that measures how many problems you've solved for other people. That's it. It's a way to get more options in your life. But, okay, let's say you get that. You reframe money as value. Easy enough, right? Well, not so fast. We immediately hit another wall. The problem usually isn't understanding value, it's actually creating it. And that, right there, is where the identity of being smart can become a massive trap. And this quote it nails it. Your intellectual brain wants to find the single most perfect, most optimized, most correct solution before you even think about taking a step. But building wealth, that game isn't about perfection. It's about endurance. It's about surviving your mistakes long enough for your wins to start to compound. So it's worth asking yourself, really, when you're making a decision, what is your brain naturally trying to maximize? The answer to that can tell you a whole lot. See, for a lot of very intelligent people, the default answer is the pursuit of prestige. We're trained to value the diplomas, the fancy titles, the feeling of sounding smart in a room. And our biggest, deepest fear? It's looking foolish. But the pursuit of profit, well, that values a totally different set of things. It values action, output, and a complete willingness to make mistakes and learn from them, often in public. These two paths often lead in completely opposite directions. And this gets to a really critical difference, declarative versus procedural knowledge. Put simply, knowing about something is not even close to the same thing as knowing how to do it. You might be able to give a perfect lecture on the principles of entrepreneurship, but have you ever actually sold anything? You can explain the math behind compound interest, but are you, actually earning any? The real world doesn't pay you for what you know, it pays you for what you can do. So how does this actually mess things up for us in the real world? This smart identity, this need for prestige, it doesn't just hang out in our heads. It actively creates these predictable mental blind spots, cognitive biases that directly sabotage our chances of financial success. Now, it's really important to get this. These aren't character flaws. They are the natural byproducts of a highly analytical brain being misapplied to the messy world of money. You've got analysis paralysis, where you just research forever and ever but never actually do anything. There's overconfidence, where you assume that because you're an expert in one thing, you're an expert in everything. And then there's loss aversion, where the pain of being wrong is so great that you'll cling to a bad decision just to avoid admitting you made a mistake. And this anecdote about complexity bias, man, it says it all. It's this deep-seated belief that a really complicated problem must require an equally complicated solution. Smart people love building these elegant, complex systems, but a lot of the time, a simple, practical solution, the pencil, is already sitting right there. The market almost always pays for clarity and execution, not for unnecessary complexity. So, what's the way out of this trap? It all comes down to a huge shift in your mindset. It's about moving from the clean, safe, theoretical world of thinking to the messy, imperfect, real world of doing. And this, right here, this is the whole thing in a nutshell. The question of intelligence is a search for perfection. It asks, what is the most correct, most optimal decision? But the question of wealth is about something totally different. It asks, what's the next move I can make that allows me to survive and stay in the game? It's a game of endurance, not a final exam on intellectual purity. So, as we wrap up part one, I want to leave you with this question. And I want you to be really honest with yourself. Take a look at your own relationship with your intellect. Is it the asset that's pushing you forward, or has it maybe become the very anchor that's holding you in place? We'll dig into how to break free from that anchor in our next explainer.
All right, welcome back. In part one, we really dug into the surprising reasons why being smart doesn't automatically make you wealthy. Now here in part two, we're tackling what is maybe the most important step of all, the mental transition you absolutely have to make to finally break that cycle.
So, does this sound familiar to you? You did everything right. You got the degree, you landed that high-paying job, and on paper, your income looks fantastic. But then, at the end of the month, you look at your bank account and just wonder, where did it all go? It's this weird, frustrating paradox, and you'd be surprised how many successful people are caught in it.
And look, this isn't just a feeling. The data backs this up big time. Get this. A staggering 48% of Americans earning over $100,000 a year are, believe it or not, still living paycheck to paycheck. This is just hard proof, right? A bigger salary is not the magic bullet for building wealth.
So what that tells us is that the real obstacle isn't the number on your paycheck. The barrier is internal. It's all about making a fundamental shift in your mindset, a transition from simply earning money to strategically building wealth. And that whole process, it starts by facing some hard truths.
Okay, so the very first step is often the one we resist the most, confronting the data. And I'm not talking about economic data from the news. I'm talking about your data, your own numbers. It's about being willing to look at your accounts, your spending, your net worth, and not flinching.
You know, there's actually a name for this kind of avoidance. It's called the ostrich effect. It's that feeling you get when you refuse to check your bank balance after a big weekend because you're kind of scared of what you'll see. We are wired to avoid information that makes us uncomfortable, but here's the bottom line. You can't fix a problem you refuse to even look at.
So, once you've committed to actually looking at the numbers, the next step is diagnosis. You have to figure out the specific mental traps that are keeping you stuck. And here's the irony. Your own intelligence might be making you more vulnerable to them.
Okay, first up, analysis paralysis. Because you're smart, right? You crave the perfect plan, the optimal, risk-free strategy. So you build these beautiful, complex spreadsheets, and you research every single possible angle. But finance isn't a game of certainty. And while you're busy searching for that flawless strategy, you're missing the entire game. I love this quote from alux.com because it just nails it. It's this obsession with theory over action. You can map out every single road, calculate the fuel efficiency down to the decimal, but none of that matters until you actually put the car in gear. Wealth isn't built on perfect plans, it's built on messy, imperfect, but consistent action. All right, next up, we've got the silent wealth killer, lifestyle inflation. As soon as you get that raise, your lifestyle just quietly expands to eat it all up. The apartment gets a little bigger, the car gets a little fancier, and that salary jump that felt so life-changing at first? Well, psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Within just a few months, it becomes your new normal, and you're right back on that same financial treadmill.
And finally, there's overconfidence bias. You're a brilliant doctor or a really sharp engineer. So you think to yourself, hey, how hard can this investing thing be? You assume your genius in one area just automatically translates to winning in the market. But this is what leads to overtrading, chasing complicated schemes, and trying to outsmart a system that almost always rewards patience over cleverness.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the traps. We see the problem. Now let's talk about the cure. The prescription here is a really fundamental shift in your identity. You have to move from a consumer mindset to a producer mindset.
So this really boils down to two totally different ways of seeing the world. The consumer, over on the left, sees money as the end goal. It's something to be spent. They trade their time for cash so they can buy things. But the producer, on the right, they see money as a tool. It's something to build with. Their focus is on creating value and building systems that earn money for them. That's the core difference between looking rich and actually being rich.
Okay, so that's the mindset shift we need. But how do we actually do it? How do we take this knowledge from just a theory in our heads to real-world behavior that actually builds wealth? Well, the first thing you have to get comfortable with is this idea right here.
Building wealth means you're going to make mistakes. You'll be wrong sometimes, you might even look a little foolish. It's an active, messy process of trying things, learning, and adapting. It's not some pristine theory you perfect in a lab. It's something you learn by doing.
So here's a simple, super practical plan. These 3 steps are direct antidotes to the mental traps we've been talking about. First, set action deadlines. That's how you beat analysis paralysis. You force a decision. Second, automate your finances. This takes your ego and overconfidence out of the day-to-day equation. And third, obsess over your net worth, not just your income. That is the absolute best defense against lifestyle inflation.
You know, when you boil it all down, this is what it's really about. The path to financial freedom isn't paved with higher IQs or more complicated spreadsheets. It's paved with simple, disciplined, consistent actions that you repeat over a long, long period of time. It's a behavioral challenge, not an intellectual one.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Which question is driving your financial life? Is it what's the correct decision, or is it what's the next move I can survive? Are you waiting for perfect certainty in a world that only ever rewards action? The answer to that question will probably determine if you stay trapped by your intelligence or if you finally make the transition to building real, lasting wealth.
All right, welcome to the final part of our series on the intellectual poverty trap. So in the first 2 explainers, we really dug into the why. We diagnosed the problem. But today is different. Today, we build the escape plan. If you've ever felt like your intelligence just isn't translating into financial success, this is your blueprint.
So let's just kick things off with what is probably the single most important idea we're going to cover, because it completely flips the script on everything we're taught. You know, we're told that the path to success is all about hard work, about putting in more hours. But the truth is, real wealth isn't about trading more of your precious limited time for money. It's about building systems, assets, businesses, investments that go to work for you 24/7 even when you're sleeping.
Exactly. We've spent a lot of time exploring why so many brilliant, really capable people get stuck financially. We've looked at the psychological traps, the flawed mindsets, but now we're shifting gears. It's time to go from just understanding the problem to actually executing the strategy to break free for good. Okay, so the very first step in this entire escape plan, it's a huge pivot in how you think about your work and the value you're creating. It's really a battle between 2 completely different mindsets, and which one you choose basically determines whether your effort stays limited or achieves massive scale. Let's break down what that really looks like.
This right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the trap. A lot of smart people, and I mean a lot, fall into this artisan mindset. We romanticize perfect technique, we love mastery, we love the craft, but here's the hard truth. The marketplace doesn't really reward the nobility of your effort. It rewards availability, speed, and scale. The system builder gets this. They're less focused on how much effort went in and more focused on the outcome, and crucially, how many people they can deliver that outcome to.
And listen, this isn't just some philosophical difference. No, this has massive real-world financial consequences. Just look at this number. We're talking about data from Wharton that shows a staggering 12-fold difference in performance over just 10 years. And what's the difference? Prioritizing scale from the very beginning. The market is sending a crystal clear message. It rewards systems that can reach the many, not just perfect craft that reaches a few.
Okay, so you might be thinking, does this mean I have to abandon my intelligence, stop being smart? Absolutely not. The escape plan is not about becoming less smart. It's about weaponizing your intellect. It's about pairing it with the single most critical skill for building wealth, and that's business understanding. This combination, that is where your true power, your unfair advantage really lies.
So let's reframe the entire purpose of your intellect with this one question. Think about it. School teaches us that the goal is to know more, right? To be the smartest person in the room. But in the world of wealth, the goal is to build more effectively. Your intelligence becomes this incredible tool, not just for understanding complex ideas, but for actually designing and executing systems that solve real problems at scale.
I mean, this quote really says it all, doesn't it? This is your unfair advantage. When you combine that analytical mind of yours with a real understanding of how markets work, how sales work, how money works, your potential just becomes limitless. You're not just someone who can see the problem anymore, you're someone who can build the scalable solution to it. You transform from just being a smart person into a strategic builder.
So, what does building smarter actually look like, in practice? Well, it means creating a system, a machine really, that can generate value and income without your constant hands-on labor. It's about making that shift from being the engine of the car to being the architect of the whole factory. And the core principle of any money machine is this word, leverage. Wealthy people understand that the game is won by strategically using capital, time, and other people's efforts. So instead of doing all the work yourself, you build a system that works for you. Think of an author who writes a book one time but sells 1 million copies of it. That is leverage. It's the ultimate amplifier, and it allows one person's idea to impact millions and generate wealth in the process.
And here it is, the practical blueprint laid out as clearly as possible. This is the entrepreneurial route in its simplest, purest form. It's a fundamental shift away from that employee mindset of just trading your hours for a paycheck. Instead, you focus on producing value that can be copied and delivered to tons of people at the same time. It could be an app, a course, a product, a YouTube channel. Honestly, the vehicle doesn't matter nearly as much as the scalable framework behind it.
Finally, escaping the intellectual poverty trap for good, it requires one last, really profound shift. This isn't just about changing what you do, it's about redefining your entire identity and what you even count as success in the first place. This is such a crucial point. Your intelligence is an incredible asset for sure. It helps you understand how all these complex systems work. But here's the thing. Understanding isn't enough. Wealth is a behavioral game. It's all about managing your own psychology, controlling your spending, and making consistent, good enough decisions over a very long time. It's about how you act, not just about what you know.
And we'll leave you with this final, powerful distinction. The intellectual mind is always searching for the perfect, optimized, 100% correct answer. It's terrified of being wrong. But building wealth, that's not some clean academic exercise. It's a messy, real-world game of survival and endurance. The path forward isn't paved with flawless analysis. It's paved with resilience, with taking action even when you're uncertain, and most importantly, with simply staying in the game long enough for your systems to start working for you. So the real question isn't what's the perfect move, it's what's the next move you can survive.